Las Vegas, Nevada. We go to Las Vegas for this jaw-dropping case of Deobra Redden, a defendant who made headlines with his explosive moment in court. Buckle up, because this story will leave you on the edge of your seat. Our story begins with Deobra Redden, a man who found herself in the center of a courtroom drama that shocked the nation. Deobra, a 30-year-old resident of Nevada, was facing charges for a series of crimes that had left the community in fear, with charges such as attempted battery with substantial bodily harm, domestic violence as well as extortion, and coercion with force.
By virtue of your plea of guilty, I hereby judge you guilty of attempt battery with substantial bodily harm.
But little did anyone know that the real shock was yet to come. As the trial progressed, tensions ran high, and emotions reached a boiling point. It was during a routine hearing that Deobra's explosive moment unfolded, caught on camera for the world to see. In order to understand the shocking courtroom explosion involving defendant Deobra Redden, it is crucial to delve into his troubled background. Redden, a 35-year-old resident of Nevada, had a reputation for being hot-headed and confrontational, which often landed him in trouble with the law. Born and raised in a small town, Redden grew up in a tumultuous environment. His family life was marred by domestic violence and substance abuse, leaving a lasting impact on his upbringing. As a result, Redden developed a volatile temperament and a propensity for aggression. From a young age, Redden found himself entangled in a series of altercations, both at school and within the community. His explosive temper and disregard for authority figures earned him a reputation as a troublemaker. Despite numerous warnings and interventions, Redden seemed unable to break free from the cycle of violence. As he entered adulthood, Redden's confrontational nature continued to manifest itself in various ways. He frequently engaged in bar brawls, street fights, and altercations with law enforcement officers. These incidents resulted in a string of arrests and convictions, further cementing his troubled reputation. Redden's criminal record painted a grim picture of his involvement in violent offenses. Assault charges, disorderly conduct, and resisting arrest were just a few of the crimes he had been convicted of over the years. Each conviction seemed to fuel his anger and defiance, leading to a never-ending cycle of aggression and legal trouble. Despite the numerous run-ins with the law, Redden showed no signs of remorse or a desire to change his ways. He continued to associate with a questionable crowd, engaging in illicit activities that further deepened his involvement in the criminal underworld. It was within this context that the events leading up to the explosive courtroom incident unfolded. As the courtroom proceedings commenced, tensions ran high. The case had attracted a multitude of spectators, including reporters, curious onlookers, and concerned citizens. The presence of such a high-profile defendant, combined with the gravity of the charges, created an atmosphere charged with anticipation and unease. It was against this backdrop that defendant Deobra Redden found himself standing in the courtroom, awaiting his fate. His troubled past, marked by a trail of violence and defiance, had finally caught up with him. Little did anyone know that the events about to unfold would surpass all expectations and shock the world. Clark County District Court Judge Mary Kay Holthus gave the defendant a chance to speak about his case.
Mr. Redden, is there anything you want to say on your own behalf before I pronounce sentence?
And this was his response.
So basically, I would like to tell the courts here, like, based on my criminal history, like, I feel that, like, I shouldn't be, like, sent to prison for a second time.
Have you looked at your criminal history? Have you looked at your criminal history?
Judge Holthus was a career prosecutor with more than 27 years of courthouse experience when she was elected to the state court bench in 2018, but she had never seen what was about to happen. She continued the conversation by listing his stellar criminal history.
3 felonies, a gross, 9 misdemeanors, multiple DVs. Got a lot going on, sir.
I just feel like,
Battery on a protected person, robberies, attempt home invasion. Go ahead, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
The defendant kept trying to prove that he had changed and was now a better man.
I just feel like I'm in a better place in my mind, I'm mentally I have a support system.
Moments after Redden tried to convince the Nevada judge that he was turning his violent past around and didn't need to be locked up, the sentencing flipped entirely on its head. Security personnel, trained to handle such situations, swiftly moved to restrain Redden, but he was a force to be reckoned with. Fueled by a potent mix of anger and adrenaline, he broke free from their grasp, his eyes fixed on Judge Holthus. At that moment, all hell broke loose.
I appreciate that, but I think it's time that you get a taste of something else because I just can't with that history. In accordance with the laws of the state of Nevada, this court...
With a primal scream, Ridden lunged towards Judge Holthus, his intentions clear. The force of his attack knocked her off her feet, sending her crashing to the ground. The sound of the impact reverberated through the courtroom, leaving everyone frozen in disbelief. He leaped over a defense table and the judge's bench, landing atop her and sparking a bloody brawl with court officials and attorneys. The chaos that ensued was captured on video as the courtroom's surveillance cameras recorded every shocking moment. The footage quickly spread like wildfire, circulating on social media platforms and news outlets worldwide. Viewers were left stunned, unable to comprehend the sheer audacity and violence of Ridden's actions. Amidst the chaos, security personnel rushed to subdue Ridden, finally managing to overpower him. But the damage had already been done. Judge Holthus, though shaken and bruised, received immediate medical attention. The incident sent shockwaves through the legal community, raising questions about courtroom security and the safety of those involved in the pursuit of justice. As the dust settled, the full weight of Ridden's actions began to sink in. The courtroom, once a symbol of order and justice, had been transformed into a scene of chaos and violence. The repercussions of this explosive confrontation would be far-reaching, not only for Ridden, but for the entire legal system. In light of his violent outburst, Ridden now faced a slew of new charges. Assault on a judge, obstruction of justice, and contempt of court were just a few of the offenses he was accused of. The severity of these charges reflected the gravity of his actions and the potential consequences he would face. Legal experts weighed in on the potential implications of Ridden's explosive outburst. The attack on a judge was seen as an attack on the very foundation of the justice system. It was a brazen display of disrespect and a blatant disregard for the rule of law. The incident served as a wake-up call, highlighting the need for increased security measures in courtrooms across the nation. As the legal proceedings unfolded, Ridden found himself at the center of a media frenzy. News outlets dissected his troubled past, delving into his history of violence and confrontations with the law. The public's fascination with the case grew as they sought to understand the motivations behind Ridden's explosive behavior. Legal experts and psychologists were called upon to provide insights into Ridden's mindset and the factors that may have contributed to his violent outburst. The consensus was that a combination of a troubled upbringing, a history of aggression, and a lack of impulse control had culminated in the shocking events that unfolded in the courtroom. The impact of Ridden's actions extended beyond the immediate aftermath of the incident. It sparked a broader conversation about the importance of maintaining respect and decorum within the justice system. Calls for increased security measures, including enhanced training for courtroom personnel and stricter protocols, echoed throughout the legal community. As the legal proceedings continued, the eyes of the nation remained fixed on the case of defendant Deobra Ridden. The outcome of the trial would not only determine his fate, but also serve as a benchmark for the justice system's ability to hold individuals accountable for their actions. In the wake of the explosive courtroom incident, the legal system was left grappling with the aftermath. The shockwaves of Ridden's violent outburst would continue to reverberate, prompting a reevaluation of courtroom security and a renewed commitment to upholding the principles of justice. The following week, the sentence was finally handed down, again by the very same judge he almost knocked out. He was sentenced to 19 to 48 months in Nevada Department of Corrections. We're in the Clark County Court in Ohio for the sentencing of 46-year-old Ricky Hand, with a slight excitement for excrement. Yes, this man was seen flinging his raw excrements in the court of law. Impossible to believe? Keep watching. He'd already been indicted on 30 charges, including safe-cracking, breaking and entering, aggravated abduction, and robbery. In a small town in Ohio, a 46-year-old man named Ricky Hand found himself at the center of a courtroom spectacle that no one could have anticipated. Hand had been convicted of a series of armed robberies that had struck fear into the hearts of the community. But it was during his sentencing hearing that things took a shocking turn. As the judge delivered Hand's sentence, he unleashed an act of defiance that left everyone in the courtroom stunned. Hand, in a fit of rage, threw his own feces at his defense attorney, creating a scene of chaos and disgust. This shocking moment not only shocked those present, but also shed light on the desperation and anger that can arise in the face of a lengthy prison sentence. Our story begins in the quiet town of Springfield, Ohio, where Ricky Hand, a 46-year-old man, had been leading a seemingly ordinary life. However, behind closed doors, Hand was harboring a dark secret that would soon send shockwaves through the community. Hand, a man with a troubled past, had fallen into a life of crime. Desperate for money and driven by a sense of desperation, he embarked on a string of armed robberies that left the town in fear. Hand's crimes were meticulously planned, and he targeted various establishments, from convenience stores to banks, leaving no stone unturned in his pursuit of ill-gotten gains. As the number of robberies increased, so did the fear and tension tension in the community. Residents were on edge, constantly looking over their shoulders, wondering when and where Hand would strike next. The local authorities were under immense pressure to put an end to this reign of terror and bring the perpetrator to justice. The investigation into Hand's crimes was a race against time. Law enforcement agencies worked tirelessly, analyzing surveillance footage, collecting evidence, and interviewing witnesses in an attempt to piece together the puzzle. The community was desperate for answers, yearning for a sense of safety and closure. Finally, after months of relentless pursuit, the authorities managed to gather enough evidence to link Hand to the series of robberies. The case against him was strong, and the time had come for Hand to face the consequences of his actions. The stage was set for Hand's court appearance, a pivotal moment that would determine the course of his future. The community held its breath, eager to see justice served and to witness the man responsible for their collective fear being held accountable. As the day of the trial approached, tensions ran high. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation, filled with members of the community, law enforcement officials, and the media, all eager to witness the culmination of this gripping saga. Hand, accompanied by his defense attorney, entered the courtroom, his face betraying a mix of anxiety and defiance. Dressed in a prison jumpsuit, he appeared as a man who had already resigned himself to his fate. Little did anyone know that this courtroom would soon become the stage for a shocking act of defiance that would leave everyone in disbelief. The trial began, with the prosecution presenting a compelling case against Hand. Witnesses were called to the stand, recounting their terrifying encounters with the armed robber. The evidence against Hand was overwhelming, leaving little room for doubt. Hand's defense attorney, aware of the daunting task ahead, fought tooth and nail to create reasonable doubt in the minds of the jury. He argued that Hand's actions were driven by desperation and a lack of options, painting a picture of a man pushed to the edge by circumstances beyond his control. The courtroom was captivated by the legal battle unfolding before their eyes. The prosecution and defense presented their closing arguments, leaving the jury with the weighty responsibility of deciding Hand's fate. The tension in the room was palpable as the community held its breath, waiting for the verdict that would determine whether justice would be served. And then, the moment arrived. The jury filed back into the courtroom, their faces betraying the weight of their decision. The judge, solemn and composed, prepared to deliver the verdict that would bring this chapter to a close. It was at this precise moment, with the eyes of the courtroom fixed on the judge, that Ricky Hand's shocking moment in court would unfold. The tension in the room reached its peak, as Hand's fate hung in the balance. What happened next would shock everyone present, and leave an indelible mark on the memory of those who witnessed it. Hand, consumed by rage and desperation, unleashed an act of defiance that would forever be etched in the annals of courtroom history. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as the judge prepared to deliver the verdict that would seal Ricky Hand's fate. All eyes were on Hand, who sat stoically, his face betraying a mix of anxiety and defiance. Little did anyone know that this courtroom would soon become the stage for an act of defiance that would shock the world. As the judge pronounced the sentence, the room fell silent. Hand's fate was sealed, but instead of accepting his punishment with resignation, Hand's demeanor changed in an instant. A look of rage washed over his face, and without warning he stood up, reaching into a bag he had hidden.
Did you just give me 40 years? Sir? Yes. You just gave me 40 years. Well, guess what?
In a shocking display of defiance, Hand grabbed a handful of his own feces and flung it at his defense attorney, who stood just a few feet away. The courtroom erupted in chaos as everyone scrambled to avoid the flying excrement. The stench filled the air, causing many to gag and cover their noses. Hand's attorney, caught off guard by the sudden assault, was hit directly in the face. Covered in feces, he stumbled backward, his expression a mix of shock, disgust, and humiliation. The courtroom descended into pandemonium as security rushed to subdue Hand and restore order.
What's wrong with you? Man! 40 is a death sentence, man!
The judge, visibly taken aback by the shocking turn of events, called for an immediate recess. Court personnel, overcome by the foul odor and the shock of what had just transpired, hurriedly evacuated the courtroom. Hand was quickly subdued and escorted out, leaving behind a scene of chaos and disbelief. Outside the courtroom, the media had gathered, eager to capture the aftermath of this shocking incident. News cameras rolled as reporters scrambled to make sense of what had just unfolded. The story quickly spread, capturing the attention of the nation and beyond. Hand's shocking act of defiance left everyone in the courtroom stunned. It was a clear display of his complete disregard for authority and the legal system. The incident also highlighted the desperation and anger that can consume individuals facing lengthy prison sentences. Hand's defense attorney, who had been representing him throughout the trial, was left humiliated and disgusted by the incident. Covered in feces, he was escorted out of the courtroom to clean himself up. It was a shocking betrayal from a client he had worked tirelessly to defend. The impact of Hand's shocking act extended extended beyond the attorney. The judge and court personnel who witnessed the incident were left shaken and disturbed. The courtroom had to be thoroughly cleaned and disinfected before proceedings could resume. In the aftermath of the incident, Hand faced additional charges for assaulting his attorney. These charges further added to his already lengthy sentence. The shocking act of defiance also garnered significant media attention, with news outlets reporting on the unbelievable courtroom outburst. Hand's shocking moment in court serves as a stark reminder of the extreme lengths some individuals will go to express their anger and frustration. It also sheds light on the challenges faced by those working within the criminal justice system, who must navigate the complexities of human behavior and emotions on a daily basis. As the courtroom slowly returned to order, the trial resumed, albeit under a cloud of disbelief and unease. The shocking incident had left an indelible mark on all those who had witnessed it, forever altering the course of Hand's trial and the lives of those involved. Following his shocking act in court, Ricky Hand found himself facing additional charges for assaulting his defense attorney. The incident had not only shocked those present, but had also violated the sanctity of the courtroom and the trust between attorney and client. Hand's defense attorney, who had been the target of the assault, was determined to see justice served. He pressed charges against Hand, seeking to hold him accountable for his actions. The legal system swiftly responded, recognizing the severity of the offense. Hand's assault on his defense attorney was not taken lightly by the court. The judge, who had witnessed the shocking act firsthand, made it clear that such behavior would not be tolerated. The court proceedings took a serious turn as Hand faced the consequences of his actions. Hand's additional charges were added to his already lengthy sentence for the string of armed robberies he had committed. The court recognized the need to send a strong message that such acts of defiance would not go unpunished. Hand's defense attorney, who had been diligently representing him throughout the trial, was determined to see justice served. He presented a compelling case, highlighting the impact of the assault on his professional and personal life. The court took these factors into consideration when determining Hand's punishment. The judge, faced with the task of sentencing Hand for both the armed robberies and the assault on his attorney, carefully weighed the severity of the offenses. The courtroom held its breath as the judge delivered the final verdict, a sentence that would shape Hand's future. In a stunning turn of events, Hand was sentenced to an additional 10 years behind bars for the assault on his defense attorney. This sentence was to be served consecutively with his existing 40-year sentence for the armed robberies. We're in the Mahoning courthouse for this shocking and heart-wrenching case, where we delve into the disturbing trial of Eric Pendland, a Youngstown father who exploded in court when he received the maximum sentence in an infant abuse case. The unimaginable details of the abuse inflicted upon his 3-month-old son are truly shocking. Prosecutors revealed that Pendland shook his infant so violently that the child was left permanently disabled, going deaf and blind. The charges against Eric Pendland include 2 separate charges of child endangerment. The extent of the injuries caused by Pendland's actions is truly horrifying, leaving the courtroom in disbelief. As we explore the events that unfolded on that fateful day in court, we witness Pendland's explosive outburst and hear the emotional pleas from the prosecution and the adoptive mother of the victim. It all started on that fateful day, March 1st, 2017. Eric Pendland, a 37-year-old father, was caring for his 3-month-old son, Eric Jr. Little did anyone know that this day would forever change the lives of everyone involved. Prosecutors revealed that Pendland, in a fit of rage, violently shook his infant son. The force was so intense that it caused the child to go deaf and blind. The consequences of Pendland's actions were immediate and devastating. The baby was rushed to the hospital, where doctors discovered the horrifying extent of his injuries. Brain bleeding, hemorrhages in his eyes, and an unresponsive state were just a few of the shocking discoveries. The medical professionals attending to the child were left in disbelief at the severity of the abuse. Assistant Mahoning County Prosecutor Jennifer McLaughlin, in her passionate plea for justice, emphasized the role Pendland should have played in protecting and nurturing his son. She stated that baby Eric Jr. was the biological son of the defendant. He was in a position to care for him, nurture him, and instead, he abused him and caused great harm to him.
I would submit to the court that this entire record is absolutely devoid of any remorse by the defendant.
The prosecution's case was further strengthened by the fact that the child had to endure 2.5 months in the hospital and undergo multiple surgeries. The road to recovery would be long and arduous, with lasting consequences for the innocent child. Eric Jr. survived, but his life would never be the same. The injuries he sustained left him permanently disabled. Visual and hearing disabilities, a permanent feeding tube, and a permanent wheelchair were just a few of the challenges he would face for the rest of his life. The vibrant future he should have had was stolen from him by the actions of his own father. As the court proceedings unfolded, unfolded, Penland maintained his innocence, vehemently denying any wrongdoing. He claimed to have been falsely accused and wrongfully convicted. Penland's words clashed with the overwhelming evidence against him, leaving the courtroom in a state of disbelief. Taking the stand for her adoptive son, Sharon Lawson, the victim's mother, delivered a powerful statement. She spoke of the life sentence her son had been handed, a sentence that would require him to rely on others to speak for him, to be his voice, and to advocate for him. Lawson's emotional plea for justice resonated with everyone present. Lawson described the heart-wrenching moment when she saw the 3D images of Eric's brain, revealing the trauma inflicted upon him. She sobbed in disbelief, witnessing the blackness, holes, and voids where living tissue should have been. The damage was irreversible, leaving a permanent scar on the innocent child's life.
Nothing prepared us for the screaming. Hours and hours of screaming.
Lawson, who had fostered other children with specific medical needs, expressed the pain and anguish she witnessed her son endure. For well over a year, Eric Jr. screamed in pain for 18 hours a day. The cries of a non-accidental brain injury echoed through their lives, a constant reminder of the horrors he had endured. As Judge Anthony D'Onofrio prepared to deliver the sentence, the tension in the courtroom was palpable. The prosecution and the victim's family hoped for justice, while Penland clung to his claims of innocence. The moment of truth had arrived, and then it happened. As Judge D'Onofrio handed down the maximum sentence of 11 years, Penland's anger erupted. He exploded in court, shouting profanities and vehemently declaring his innocence. The outburst shocked everyone present, revealing the volatile nature of the case.
Man. I didn't do anything wrong, man.
Both McLaughlin and Lawson expressed their satisfaction with the maximum sentence, acknowledging that it was a small measure of justice for the victim. However, they also acknowledged the limitations of the legal system. The sentence could never fully compensate for the harm caused to the child. The unbalance between the severity of the crime and the available penalties was evident. For the victim's family, the sentencing marked a step towards closure. 2 weeks prior, they had finalized the adoption of Eric Jr., providing him with a loving and supportive home. Although his condition would never improve, the family was committed to making him feel loved and comfortable for the rest of his life. If you enjoyed this video, check out our other awesome videos on the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.